Hello, beautiful souls, weirdo, whimsical, witch, wizard, wise one, however you choose to identify. Welcome. I'm Chloe Rose, your host today. Welcome to the magical realm of Mystic Hearts. So today, I am going to talk about, drumroll please, toxic relationships, and to go into a bit more about that, how I ended a cycle of toxic relationships, a 34-year cycle. I ended it for good last year. So I'm going to be exploring this topic. It's something that I was guided to talk about, which kind of came as a surprise to me, kind of out of the blue. Relationships are not something that I tend to talk about. I like to talk about the relationship that I have with myself. But I was really strongly guided to talk about this week, and I am yet to discover what the significance of that is. But here we go. Maybe we're entering into a time of redefining relationships. I hope we are. And yeah, I just wanted to say a disclaimer that what I share is just my own opinion through my own experience. I am not claiming to be speaking the one truth. I am just sharing through my own opinion and experience. And I'm not saying that I'm right and you're wrong. And I am in no way going to be naming and shaming past relationships. It's not about that. When I look back now on all of my past relationships, and when I'm talking about relationships, people that I had invested time in being with, not one night stands and all of those silly things that I did when I was very young. But if you're doing that now and you don't think it's silly, that's also awesome. Talking about people who I invested time with, I do not look back on those situations now with any hatred, with any regret or any remorse. It is all just experience for me through which I have learned. However, it got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be in another relationship that is not serving me. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And also, this goes for all of the content that I share, especially the longer format videos where I go a bit deeper. My opinions and my experiences are subject to change. I'm sure there are videos that I filmed a few years ago which I don't fully align with anymore. So I just want to honour that. I am sharing how I feel now, and that is also subject to change and growth, which I welcome. But I want to share with you where I'm at now in my journey. Because I was called to. So let's see what messages come through. I won't be sharing anything too traumatic today. I will just be discussing generally about what is a toxic relationship. And the intention of this video is to just, number one, for myself, is just to share where I'm at right now and just kind of vocalize that and wipe the slate clean. It's been almost a year now, pretty much coming up to a year that I've been single. And I kind of just want to celebrate that and start fresh. And the second intention for recording this today is to hopefully empower anyone who's watching this to know their worth and to know that you don't have to just settle. You can actually say what you want and receive the respect of those boundaries and building yourself up. I feel that there is this undercurrent, especially for women, men in the comments. If you've experienced this too, please let me know. This kind of undercurrent of societal expectations, that we should just be grateful for the person that we have and that we should settle even though we're not happy. And I really just do not agree with that right now. I do not agree with that at all. And of course, as always, with being a human, there are so many complex layers to this journey, especially relationships, because not only are we navigating our own mind, body, emotions, energy, and everything else, and the multidimensionality of being a spiritual being in a human body, we're also then bringing in another human into close encounters with us, and there's just all of those different reactions on every level. But yeah, I wanted to share this also because I have never in my life had a role model to really teach me about self-worth and how that should come across in relationships. And I've never really been taught as a woman to stand up for myself and to say what I want and what I desire, and the importance of that as well. So, yeah, going to be talking about that today. We'll see where it goes. So first of all, well, I'm going to just talk about what is a toxic relationship. Let's get that clear to begin with, and then I'll just reflect a little bit on my past relationships, and then I would love to share last year how I recognized this cycle, and then how I finally chose to break free consciously. It was a conscious choice. So the word toxic gets thrown around so much these days, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't like how much the word is used, but I would say that there is definitely a stereotype for a toxic relationship. And so what do I think that toxic relationship? Well, I actually feel that it's probably a lot more normalized than a lot of us may be ready to face or admit. I would say, for me, a toxic relationship is one that takes more than it gives. So it's imbalanced. And that can be in all areas of life, whether that's like financial, sexual, giving love and affection, communication, energetic, mental, physical, all of the things. A relationship that takes more than it gives. And in that theme of balance, I would say a toxic relationship is a relationship that makes you feel more low than it does make you feel good. And I am absolutely not implying in any way that we should seek our happiness through another person. I don't believe that at all. I believe that we find our happiness from within. But the sad thing is, a lot of us don't go for others who are of a vibrational match to that joy. And that's where the problems can happen. However, I do feel that we should be with someone who makes our lives significantly better, because otherwise, what is the point? What is the point? If we are happy and balanced and thriving and harmonious on our own, and we have a relationship with someone who takes away from that, what is the point? What is the point? And I do believe in roles in a relationship, and supporting one another, building each other up. I also believe in the importance of having your own independence in a relationship as well. But that's not to do with toxicity. It's when you feel more down than you feel peaceful. I wouldn't even say like you need to be ecstatically happy, but that feeling of peace and comfort and homeliness and safety, that's a non-toxic relationship. What else would I say? A toxic relationship would be one where there is really obvious power struggles, I would say, between the couple, between the individuals, power struggles. That can turn very toxic, because when you have power struggles, that's when manipulation can start coming in. So dishonesty obviously is part of a toxic relationship, I believe. I don't fully know if I believe that if you meet someone and start dating them, you should just put everything on the table straight away. I do actually feel for myself that there should be some building of trust and taking time. But, you know, if you're ready to commit to someone and live with someone or marry someone, then yeah, all the cards should be on the table. That's obviously very important. So trust and honesty are a big part of that. So a toxic relationship would be lies and deceit. I think a toxic relationship as well. So thinking of my experiences, when I have been in what I would consider to be a toxic relationship, which has not been all of my relationships, this feeling of not knowing where you're at in the relationship. And I feel like this is so common, and yet it has been so normalized. Again, is this just women that feel like this, or men? Do you experience this too, of constantly questioning the relationship, being like, am I even happy? Like, is this relationship even serving me? Does this person even love me? What I would tell you now from experiencing this is, if you are having those doubts, unless you are struggling with serious levels of insecurity, I would say that those niggles are trying to tell you something. Especially if you're a woman, because our intuition is on point. Yeah. If you're questioning a relationship, you're questioning it for a reason. Whether it's that you're not happy or you're not getting what you expect from a relationship, yeah, I would say that. So that feeling of uncertainty, feeling of doubt, not knowing where you're at, that's toxic for me. Obviously, abuse, controlling issues, when you feel like you can't be yourself, yes, that is a toxic relationship. When you feel that you have sacrificed parts of yourself for a relationship. And again, something that just really kind of irks me is, you know, when people are like, marriage is sacrifice and being in a relationship is sacrifice. And I feel that as individuals, there's this kind of danger of taking that too literally, of being like, okay, I'm sacrificing this part of myself. I feel that compromise is more of a word. Marriage should be compromise, understanding one another and respecting one another's desires, needs and wishes, and making sure that each person is felt and seen and heard. But sacrifice is a very strong word. Sacrificial means literally giving a part of yourself away to worship something else. So yeah, I mean, that term really just does not vibe with me personally. So yeah, losing a part of yourself for the sake of feeling that you are appeasing that other person, or if that other person tells you that they'll love you more if you look, dress, speak, act in a certain way. No. That is a red flag, red like my lips. Toxic relationship. I mean, it would be, you know, attraction for the wrong reasons. Attracted to someone physically or for their money. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with seeking a partner who is successful, by the way. And there's nothing wrong with seeking a partner if you want to be protected and taken care of. But if you're just seeking someone because they're rich, then yeah, maybe that's a little bit out of balance. Toxic relationship, lack of communication. just very surface level, and not getting into the deep and gritty stuff, because that's all well and good for a certain amount of time, but you'll hit a wall pretty quickly. Or the other extreme, and I've experienced this before, of a surface level relationship where you're not able to communicate on a deeper level, is that you'll find that you're just wanting to start numbing yourself or escaping it in other ways, whether that be through alcohol, drugs, any pattern of escapism. And then that's definitely toxic if you're trying to escape your own relationship. So I thought that I would just look up the Google definition of toxic relationships too, and see if that brought any extra layers of insight to us. So the official Google definition of a toxic relationship is a partnership characterized by ongoing harmful behaviors such as manipulation, control, disrespect, lack of support, that leave one person feeling drained, belittled, or unsafe. Unlike healthy connections, these relationships foster chronic stress, low self-esteem and anxiety, rather than safety and mutual growth. Ooh, those last two words, that was the source I was looking for. Mutual growth. And I feel for me that has been a huge issue in many of my past relationships, has been that I am like, I dive deep into self-development, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I love experimenting on myself, but I love to go deep. So I am constantly evolving and changing, and many of the partnerships that I've been in just haven't been at that space in themselves where they've been ready or willing to do that work themselves. And it's not that I've ever expected or even desired my partners to change, because I fell for them for a reason. However, when you are an individual in a relationship and you are pulling back these layers of self-awareness and knowing yourself, when you're with someone that's not doing that, it's almost like you just feel like you're leaving them behind and outgrowing them. And I really don't feel like in a relationship that you both have to be doing the same things and the same practices. If you want to and you can, that's awesome, but just different practices of self-growth and self-awareness. I feel that is healthy. So we're going to say the opposite to a toxic relationship is a healthy relationship, just for lack of a better word. But I do like that, because I do feel that a positive relationship is healing. It's really healing. And positive relationships actually help to heal the hidden woundings that cause us to keep getting pulled back into the toxic relationships in the first place. And in this conversation today, I am going to be talking really about romantic partnerships. To talk about all relationships in general would be just such a mountain to climb. But if you want me to talk about different types of relationships in another conversation, let me know. I'd love to. But what I do find interesting is how also toxic romantic relationships, the roles and those experiences, how they play out, can help us to also reflect on other relationships in our life. And just reflecting back on, one of the first things that I said, one of the first qualities that I mentioned about what I feel is a toxic relationship, is when a relationship is taking more than it's giving from you as an individual. So I think like Okay, so we think about other relationships. Think about the relationships with our world leaders. I think it's safe to say that they are taking and not really giving anything. So that's a very toxic relationship. And then you can keep expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding on this, thinking about all the relationships that we have in our lives and really considering, like, wow, am I in multiple toxic relationships? And once we start recognizing this and acknowledging this, that's when we can actually start making changes. We can choose. We have the power of free will choice, even though we have been led to believe that we do not, that we have to live in fear and that we must comply. But in actuality, we are sovereign, free will beings. We are immortal souls, and we actually have the power to change and shift our reality to one that is flourishing and supportive and abundant and loving. But first of all, we've got to really recognize where it's not that. There's just a really like simple old school saying, maybe it's in like business development or personal development, and it's like, the way to figure out what you want is to figure out what you don't want. And I just think that's so good. And that's why I wanted to talk about toxic relationships today. Yeah, and I'm not going to go into details about my relationships. I have to say, I spent a long time in my life really regretting past relationships and holding on to a lot of hatred and resentment for those that I shared those relationships with. But I would say in the last 6 years, since 2020, and all of that madness that happened, in 2020, I almost overnight was homeless and jobless, and at the age of 29 had to literally completely start my life all over again when there was this crazy global scandemic happening. So in the midst of all of that, starting my own business, and just being like, I've lost everything, so I might as well just start again. I think in the midst of all of that, it really kick-started this deeper level of healing within me. For anyone who's interested, I've talked about my times before this, living in Indonesia, and my struggles with addictions and things like that. That's not a conversation for this chat, but yeah, when I was living abroad, and in 2020 I had to come back to England. And it just opened up this space within me to take my healing to a deeper level. And yeah, I don't know why and what triggered it, but I remember around this time, it was when I first shared about my experiences. I don't know what I can say on YouTube, but sexual abuse of the most extreme nature, I shared that outwardly with friends. And I feel that this kick-started this real deep healing journey within myself, which then led me to question, like, why was I such a reckless teenager? Why did I, at that time, when I was partying all the time and just living that like crazy lifestyle, why was I having one night stands and just doing all of these reckless things? And why was I just allowing myself to be with people who didn't respect me? And yeah, all of those things. I feel that for the first time in my life, I just really started asking these questions of why? Why? There must be a cause to this. And, looking back now, I just have nothing but love for my younger self. And I used to be really ashamed of that part of me. But now I'm like, you know what? That was my wild side. And I didn't have fun at the time, but looking back, it's just like such a distant memory, and it all has molded me into the person I am today. And I even was like ashamed of the partying and the drug taking and the wild times, but I look back now and I'm like, do you know what? There were some amazing moments. There really were. There were moments of connection and freedom and out of body experiences. And like I said, it's all built me up to the woman that I am today. So first of all, I started reflecting back on this, and I started beginning this journey of really just holding that part of me, sort of the darkest years of my life, that for so many years I had just had so much shame that I felt for that part of me. I started just really loving that version of me, and rather than looking back with like, ugh, gross, ick, looking back with like, oh, just so much love, and just reflecting almost from detaching myself. So as if I was looking upon the life of someone else, and that was really beautiful, because it just helped me to remember, to accept, to love, and to forgive. And I think that kind of continued on this journey of recognizing relationships. And I would say now, like, I don't know if I have ever truly been in love in a relationship. Like, I've been in relationships where I've said I love you, and I've meant that. Like, I think that, I mean, I would love to say that I love everyone on this planet, and some part of me really does. Like, I do have love for all beings, but saying I love you to someone is different from really truly having that deep, heartfelt, soulful connection that goes beyond deep conversations, and it goes beyond knowing each other inside out. It goes beyond words. It's cosmic. It's amazing. I can't say that I have ever experienced that in my life, and people find that crazy when I say that. Because I've been in relatively long relationships. I would say most of my relationships have lasted between 2 to 4 years, so never that long, but they've always got to that point where it was like, okay, this is either gonna get like serious now or it's not working. So yeah, and that was another reflection. I was like, I really, even though I've said I love you, and I felt that like honeymoon phase of a relationship where it's just all in, like I'm a big lover, like I'm a lover girl. I go head first in a relationship, and I just love to open my heart and let it all out. But of course I've learnt my lesson from that now, because I truly believe now, and this is what I believe in this moment, that a significant other should prove that they are worthy of such a love. And I believe that. I'm quite old-fashioned in my values, so yeah, apologies if that offends anyone. But I do think women are absolutely amazing, and we have menstrual cycles, we bleed every month, we have hormones that are just like this constantly. Like, life is not easy for us. And I don't have children, but for all the women who have children out there, oh my goodness, that is just another layer of magnificence. That is a miracle. And I do feel that women need to be taken care of so much better. And that's never something that I've really put first in my relationships, is how I'm taken care of, which is interesting. And I only realised it last year when I broke this cycle. I thought that being happy and feeling that honeymoon stage of love or love, I love you, love, was enough. But yeah, my reflection of that has changed now. And a pattern that I realised about myself before last year, I would say a couple of years before last year, and I only recognised this because a sister of mine said it to me. And I do love this about close friends, because they can often see parts of ourselves that we are perhaps not willing or not ready to see about ourselves. And this friend said to me, she was like, "You're always in a relationship." And, straight away, my defences came up. And I was like, "No, I'm not. That's not true." And this had a domino effect of me suddenly realising that, of course, there was a lot of truth in that, as any time that we tend to put our defences up. Because the truth hurts. The truth hurts. And this was definitely a signpost for me of like, yeah, why am I not comfortable being on my own? Why am I not comfortable being on my own? And I also feel that there's two major influences for me around this about always wanting to be in a relationship. One is my own trauma, which I am getting to, by the way. I know I'm taking my time. And number two, also external pressures. Like, I've had friends in my life who've just been like pushing me to date, and I've had family members who've been pushing me to get married. And as silly as those influences may seem, they really do have an effect on us. And I've also broken that cycle now, of letting other people's wants and needs influence my own decisions and desires. That is broken. So there was that. So I started this journey of reflection and reflecting of, okay, why have I never really felt like I've been in love or found my soulmate? I do believe in soulmates. And why does it feel like I'm always in a relationship and that they always end and that they always take more than they give? So that was the start. And reflecting back on my relationships, I have been in relationships where I have been treated like a queen materialistically, been bought all this amazing stuff, taken out for dinner and treated that way, which I think is just wonderful, and that is everything I want and expect from a relationship and from a partner. For myself, I know some people aren't seeking that, and that's great, but for me, I want that. I want to be taken care of. But the problem is with my past relationships was that came with a price. So either the financial security or the gift giving came with a price of control, so you need to look a certain way, or it came with a lot of jealousy and things like that. Or in another relationship where I was treated really well financially, and in most cases I was treated well in that relationship, but I was like the trophy, I was the trophy and I should be seen and admired but not heard. So I was like excluded from being around my partner's friends, and yeah, it was just all a bit weird, and it just didn't feel good. It didn't feel good, right? And that's the sign in the beginning, like, does this make me feel good? No. So it's toxic. And then I've been in relationships with partners who have not been financially supportive because they just were not in that space in their life where they were successful. However, they treated me with so much love and kindness and devotion, and the sex was fire. But they didn't give that financial support, which is something that I seek in a relationship. And I truly believe that we can have it all. I truly, truly believe that both as a man or a woman, or however you choose to identify what you want in a partner, everything that you want in a partner, you are not only worthy of receiving, but you can. And that person is out there. We have to just find a way of breaking the cycle of whatever trauma it is that is stopping us from aligning with that individual. And we have to believe it as well. And we have to believe in ourselves. Self-belief is a lot of a part of it. And there's something different about being confident, because it's a lot easier being outwardly confident and putting on a show than it is to be like, do you know what? I know my worth. And I am no longer settling for less. There's power in that. And that takes work. And then I feel that, and the reason why I'm explaining all of these different relationship dynamics is because they've all been so different and they've been out of balance. They've had some things that I've really wanted and desired and enjoyed, but then there's always been this kind of dark side of really things that haven't served me to the point where I couldn't continue the relationship. And I've definitely been I had a really beautiful relationship during, I think it was 2020, 2021, around that time, a really beautiful relationship where it was probably the relationship where I felt most connected emotionally and creatively, and felt comfortable with. It was a very different relationship for me. It started as a friendship, and I think that had a key role to it. The problem was, though, that this individual, he just couldn't express himself. So what I was saying about that outward confidence, he had this outward confidence, he was just good at joking, good at talking, but then when it came to like that actual inner expression of the true expression, he wasn't able to give that. So yeah, that was a tough one for me. And it's funny reflecting, because on the back of that relationship, the person that I went for after that was like so expressive. I mean, I will fully put my hands up and admit that I went for this person purely on his looks. I was like, do you know what? I am going to be with like my teenage dream of what I considered to be attractive, which is like full body tattoos, giving like skater vibes, really beautiful, good looking. Totally fell for that. I fell blindly into that. I was in a time of insecurity where I had just it was in this time where I was still building up my business. This was about 4 years ago, but one avenue of my business that I was experimenting kind of felt like it had failed really hard, and the people that I was on that business venture with, we fell out. So I'd lost quite a few friends at that time, so I was in this space of like, I just want to be with someone. And I aligned with that ex, and I was just like, yes, winning, I've got this really good looking guy. But yeah, unfortunately the other things didn't align, and he had this like beautiful creative expression, but there was problems with the deeper connection there, and then also the financial security. And we parted because our lives and our beliefs and our morals didn't align. And again, I was evolving and expanding and growing and working on myself, and it just wasn't mirrored in the relationship. So yeah, unfortunately, I just lost a lot of respect, and decided to move on because I just felt like I wasn't happy. And sadly, what was interesting about that relationship was that even from the beginning, my intuition knew that it wasn't right for me. I even had someone telling me that it wasn't right for me as well, and I ignored it. Because my ego was like, but in hindsight, yeah, throughout, especially the first couple of years of the relationship, I was constantly questioning it. It's like my higher self was there being like, what are you doing? This isn't serving you. But there was just this part of me that couldn't let go and just desperately wanted to make it work. And that's unfortunately what happens when we have woundings that we are not addressing and that we are just diving into relationships, hoping to be healed instead. Anyway, against all odds, last year, it was probably maybe a couple of months before this time last year, I decided that it was time to end this 3-year relationship that I was in. And I didn't really have that much support, I would say, from people that knew the relationship. They were just like, oh, you should make it work, and I was like, no, I'm really miserably unhappy. Why would I? So I ended it. And similar kind of situation where, we were living together, so I lost my home and had to make arrangements to move, which felt like a sacrifice, and all of this stuff. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying it as it is. And so last year was a year where I would say that I really allowed myself to heal from the relationship. And that was another thing that I recognized, was that with every past relationship, I just moved on straight away. And that wasn't always jumping straight into the next relationship, but it was jumping into the next thing. Maybe that was like jumping on a plane, or jumping into a project, or jumping into a new job. I never gave myself the time to heal. So last year, I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm not even going to consider the idea of dating until I've been single for at least a year. And that was a huge thing for me. And I'm so grateful that I've done that. And honestly, now to this day, I don't even feel like I'm ready yet. I don't feel like I'm ready. I've been I would say in the last month, I've been considering it, like, oh, I wonder how I will start meeting people when I'm ready. But yeah, I haven't wanted to, and it's been the biggest blessing that I've given myself, this time to get to know myself and to really reflect upon the pattern. So one of the things, last year, the amount of healings that I paid for and that I experienced last year was just insane. I had, let me just try and count. I had a massive mushroom ceremony, which was like a womb healing ceremony, which is a lot of inner child work. I had 2 witch wound healings, past life healings, which had these patterns of darkness and destruction. For myself, I held myself a funeral, which was honestly so freaking powerful. If you're interested in that, I can talk more about that in another video. I just don't want to digress too much here. And then I held myself a rebirthing ceremony. I'm trying to remember what else I did, but I had so many quantum healing and shamanic healing journeys last year, and there was just so much space there. It was like the first year when I just said yes. I just said yes to the healing, and my guides were even like, this is going to be a year where you're not going to have much work. You're going to take like a financial loss in your business because you need the space. You need the space and the time to heal. And I'm so grateful for that. I mean, there were moments last year when I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to pay my rent. But what I will say, that it always came through. The finances, the money, the abundance always came through, which on another layer and another topic entirely helped me to build this deep relationship of trust with myself and with my faith, and also with the universe, with my guides. So so I did that. I put aside everything and dedicated a whole year to my healing and to finding my joy and finding myself, refinding myself. And what was really sad upon reflection was in the last relationship I was in, I felt like so many parts of me died. So many parts of me. Like, I was not authentic in that relationship, and I take total responsibility for that. You know, I had full power and control to walk away or just to be myself, you know, but I wasn't. And so the past year has been a full 12 months of devotion to my healing, to re-honoring the truth of who I am. And so that's been mainly inner child healing. So really, really, really getting in touch again with all of the things that I was totally obsessed with as a child, which was all things weird and dark and scary and alternative. And then also Lord of the Rings, fantasy, drawing, painting. I mean, last year I started painting again, which is amazing. After probably about a 10-year hiatus from creativity, I started painting again last year, which is huge for me. So it's rediscovering all of these parts of me. And even though like these specific healings weren't necessarily aimed towards helping me break this toxic relationship pattern, they expanded and opened up the space within me to start recognizing it. So it was like a side effect of all the healing work brought upon this deeper level of self-awareness and honesty with myself. And it just came to a very, very simple reflection that because I've never had a father in my life, I've never had a father figure or any kind of male role model. My father left me, abandonment wound. And therefore, because I've never had a male role model, I have used men my whole life to try and get that. So I'll just latch on straight away, desperate to be shown love and affection and desperate to be taken care of. And that's always been like the number one thing. And of course, that's toxic because I am putting all of my other needs, cares, and desires at the bottom of the pile in service of that abandonment wound. And, you know, just recognizing that was huge. So huge. This desperate, bottomless pit of wanting and needing to be loved by a man. And when I recognized it, I shone light of it, on it, of awareness and of love and forgiveness. And I just recognized that. And what I recognized was that, I've never had a father figure in my life or a male role model, which has its shadows clearly. But what the real positive reflection is of this is now I get to design what I feel the perfect, well, I don't believe in perfect, but the ideal for me male partner and role model would be if I ever choose to have a family. I get to choose that and I get to design that. And recognizing that last year was so empowering for me. So empowering. And recognizing and realizing that I have that choice now and that I no longer just have to desperately seek love. It's given me that space to, start writing things down and start working on myself. Like, what do I want in a man and in a relationship? And yeah, reading romance books written by women and just getting inspired and seeking out inspiration of male role models, whether it be fantasy or reality, and really just getting excited by that again, and getting excited by love, and getting excited about old-fashioned romance where women are courted and treated like princesses and worshipped and desired. Like, that has been reignited within me like never before. So it really was as simple as that, making space for the healing work. And we as humans are very, very good at making ourselves busy so that we avoid those dark corners of ourselves that are desperately crying out for attention, and most of it is our inner child. So it's ended now because I've chosen to end it. I've also done cord cutting ceremonies, releasing myself from past relationships. It's been ongoing work. I've done womb healing on myself, where I've actually released the memories and the energy of past relationships and just filled it with light and love and respect, and forgiveness. Forgiveness is a huge one. But yeah, I've broken that cycle now, and I even thinking about going on dates moving forwards. Like, I can just totally see and navigate how that experience is going to be, because for the first time in my life, I will be the one that is in the driver's seat. And that's an exciting thought now. But yeah, I'm just trying to reflect upon if there's anything else that I wanted to share. I do feel like there is an important point that I may have missed, and my ADHD brain just can't quite grab onto that important silver thread of thought. But just upon reflection of like the power of healing work and the power of putting your own healing at the forefront of importance in your life, and what that can do, and the magic that can unfold from that, and the self-awareness that can unfold from that it's unfathomable. It's miraculous. Like, miracles happen when you start to put yourself first. So I would just say, takeaways and reflections from this. If anyone's watching this and they're in a relationship they're unsure about, you can ask yourself, am I authentic in this relationship? Has any part of me been sacrificed for the sake of this relationship? Does this relationship take from me more than it gives to me? Do I feel safe in this relationship? Do I feel at peace in this relationship? Peace is an important one, I find. Of course, disagreements are natural, but peace, feeling peaceful and safe. Does this relationship feel honest? What is my intuition telling me? Do I have questions or niggling doubts? And I also just wanted to say that, yes, this has been about romantic relationships, but probably most of the themes that I've spoken about, I have also, apart from obviously sex, don't get it twisted, most of the themes that I've covered today also parallel in friendships. I've definitely had toxic friendship relationships my whole life, and I do feel that I've hopefully ended that pattern. But yeah, relationships of manipulation and gossiping and using and things like that. It's also an important to question those close to us, and really what their intentions are for us. Do they have our best intentions, or not? And if not, what are we going to do about it? Do you love yourself enough to say no to someone who does not have your best desires and intentions in their best interests? Also in family relationships and family dynamics, which I know are super difficult and complicated because we are so intertwined with them. But just knowing that you can actually say no. You can say no. But I would say that healing family relationships to the best of our ability, I feel like there's always going to be some disconnect and some difficulties with family, but rather than running away and cutting people off, like, can we actually get to this point of loving understanding? I feel like there's something really deeply beautiful about that, really deeply beautiful. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this absolute rambling today, and I just hope that you recognize your worth and know that you are so worthy and deserving of everything you desire, and then some times 100. And I would say that it's important to actually really get clear on what it is that you do want before embarking on a new relationship or a new friendship. Get clear on what you want. It's almost like setting boundaries or setting agreements before stepping into something, taking charge of your life, because you, my dear, are worth it. Let me know if you enjoyed this conversation today, if you have any key takeaways, questions, or anything else you'd like me to explore in more depth. I absolutely love it when you share in the comments. So much love from my heart to yours.